In one of my earlier videos of this year, I had predicted certain changes that are going to be introduced in the UGC NET from June 2024 onwards. And one of those changes has actually taken place as of a public notice which was released yesterday by the UGC. On its 578th meeting conducted on the 13th of March, it was decided that the NET exam is now going to be more important than it was before. Why? Because now it is going to be the one-stop solution. Whether you want to apply for a post of assistant professor, whether you want to apply for a PhD, or whether you want to obtain a JRF. Now, this notice has created a lot of waves of confusion in the minds of the students, teachers, aspirants, and most importantly, people who have already obtained NET and or JRF, and they want to know a lot about what this notice means for them. So I decided to make a video dedicated to these changes that have been introduced, from when they will be implemented, what does it mean for future aspirants, and most importantly, what does it mean for people who have already cracked the exam. So let's get started. First, it says that from the academic session 2024 to 2025 onwards. That means from June 2024 onwards. But if you think about it really carefully, you will understand that June 2024's NET is just a couple of months away. So how can this change be implemented? Well, it doesn't implement any significant changes in the syllabus. The syllabus remains the same, at least so far. So I don't think it will be a difficulty to implement this change from June 2024 onwards. The first thing that we have to understand is that in all probability, this change will be implemented from the next NET, that is June 2024. Next, what does it say? It says that from 2024 to 2025 academic year onwards, NET will be used to understand whether a student is eligible for admission to PhDs in various universities, in addition to being eligible for the post of assistant professor and JRF as well. Now, till date, NET used to be awarded in two categories. One was the LS or lecturership, which was the lower strata, which many people got, compared to the next category. And the other was JRF, which was junior research fellowship, which comparatively fewer people got. Now a third category is introduced. Let me explain these three categories and what they mean for us. The first category is where you obtain JRF, and again, like the previous one, it is the highest possible category, and in this case you will get JRF. You will be eligible to apply for the post of assistant professors, and you will be able to apply for PhDs across all universities in the country. But this one does not have an expiry date for either of these three categories. It is very clearly said that the expiration date for the admission to PhD category will only be applied for category 2 and category 3. What does it mean? I'm coming to it. The next thing is the second category, where you are not eligible to be a JRF, but you are eligible to apply for a post of assistant professor, and you are eligible to apply for PhDs in several Indian universities. And this category, the second part of this category, that is to say your eligibility to apply for PhDs in various Indian universities, only this part will be valid for one academic year. Now this one academic year must be taken with a bit of salt, because if you don't know this already, many universities take admissions in 2024 for the academic year 2022 to 23, or maybe many universities take admission in 2025, that is the next year, for the academic year 2023 to 2024, because they are running in a backlog. So any university that takes admission in that particular academic year where you have qualified NET in category 2, in that particular academic year, if your university is taking admission, then in all probability you will be eligible to directly appear for the interview and bypass the RET, which is the research eligibility test. What does this mean for the research eligibility tests that were conducted in several universities up till this point? I'm coming to it in a later section of the video. Now, coming to the third category, which is you're only eligible to apply for PhDs, and you're neither eligible for an assistant professor post and you're neither eligible for a JRF. This is the lowest category of passing NET that is recently introduced. This category was not there before. Up till this point, if you passed net, it always implied that you are at least eligible to apply for assistant professor, but that is no longer going to be the case. So if you're eligible to only apply for PhDs via net, then that means the entire certificate is only valid for 1 year. Now this 1 year may be one exact year from the date on which the certificate is issued, or one academic year from the date of which the certificate is issued. This part is not exactly clear to me, or I'm thinking that it is not clear to actually anyone, because this 1 year part is not very clearly mentioned. It's written 1 year, but whether it will be one calendar year or one academic year, that difference is not very clearly mentioned. And if you are in academia for as long as I have been, which is not very long, I'll admit, but still, if you are in academia for as long as I have, you will know that these two things are vastly different. One calendar year and one academic year are not the same things, though they should be in terms of length, but in most cases they aren't. Now, coming to the RET question. What will happen for universities which used to conduct RET, especially say for example a university like the University of Hyderabad, which used to conduct RET irrespective of whether the students had NET, SET, JRF, whatever. Every student had to appear for RET. Will these RETs become obsolete? In all probability, yes, because it is said in two sections of this particular website, which I will upload on your screens right now. You can see in the first instance of this mention, it did not say that net will be compulsorily used, but it said net may be used. But in the very next sentence, it said net will be used. We are not sure whether this means that universities will now lose the autonomy to conduct their independent research entrance tests or not. And this could also mean that if you do not have net in either of these three categories, then you won't be able to appear for the RET anymore. That is, you either pass net or you give up on your dreams of hoping to do a PhD in the longer run. Now, since they're increasing the categories or tiers of possible people who will qualify, does this mean that they will increase the number of people who will qualify? I highly doubt it. It will probably remain the same, and in some cases it might even decrease. Therefore, it means that importance of NET as an exam has now increased, no matter what people say. It is now your one-stop solution for PhD, assistant professor and JRF. Now, since this is a new thing that is introduced, this will definitely mean that lesser people will qualify NET for assistant professorship, and more people will qualify in the last category that is mentioned. And there will be three different categorizations. Now, for people who are in category 2 and category 3, it is clearly mentioned that 70% score will be given to your NET score, and therefore you have to be given a score. You can no longer play around with the foolish idea of a percentile. By the way, I have a detailed video on percentile versus percentage on my channel itself. I'll give a link somewhere upwards. You can go ahead and check it out. You cannot anymore fool around with the idea of percentage, which was just another way to keep us delayed from knowing our actual scores. So you have to give us an actual score, and based on 70% of that score, you will be given a marks, and 30% of the score will be on your interviews for those who are in categories 2 and 3. And those who are in category 1, they will directly appear for an interview, which was already the case anyway, and they will then directly get admission into a PhD. Now, does this mean that your NET certificate is going to be valid for 1 year if you are in category 2 and 3? No, absolutely not. The NET certificate for the post of assistant professor only, that is the first part of category 2, will be valid for a lifetime. In my opinion, I'm not 100% sure about this, but how they will get this message across in that certificate is a very dicey thing to me. One part of the certificate is valid for life, another part is valid for 1 year. Whether they are going to do 2 certificates, whether they are going to decrease the value of this certificate to 1 year entirely, all these things are not very clear to me. But they have never said anything about the validity of the certificates which are issued in category 1, that is those who have JRF. Till date, we already know that JRF was valid for only 3 years, but they have not said anything about that. Does this mean that JRF's validity will increase, decrease, remain the same, will go on for a lifetime? We are not sure, right? But it could mean some changes in the applicability of the JRF. It could also be reduced down to 1 year. Who knows? People in the government want us to attempt this exam more and more number of times, which is one of the fundamental reasons why this is being done. Therefore, we have to take into consideration the fact that the kind of exam that we are giving, it is very important, and we have to do our best in order to ace this particular exam in whichever way we can. Finally, the most important question: what does this mean for people who already have NET, already have JRF but have not secured a PhD? In my very humble opinion, I don't think it applies to them, because it clearly says from the academic session 2024 to 2025 onwards, those who already have JRF, I think their JRF will be eligible for PhD admissions just like the previous rules. But some universities might want you to appear for it again. I am not responsible for that, obviously. But I think, and especially if you have NET without JRF, then I don't think it makes any difference to you. Your NET certificate is clearly said that it's valid for lifetime. You can apply for assistant professorship posts, and you can also sit for PhD interviews directly. See, understand something very fundamental. The new rules do not have an opportunity where you pass NET but are not eligible to apply for a PhD. At least for 1 year you are already eligible, even if you can qualify in the last category. So if you have a NET that you have secured before June 2024, then need not worry, you will in all probability be eligible to appear for PhDs using that certificate, using the old rules that are existing, and the old rules will be applicable for people who are appearing for NET from academic session 24-25 onwards. However, this is a bit which I'm not very sure about, but common sense dictates that this should be the case. They have put in really hard work to qualify NET, their efforts, and that certificate should not be invalid. Therefore, this is what I'm predicting is going to happen. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, hasta la vista.